learning that Ollie has never muted himself in the months we've been doing
Found
this.
it out. I found it. I found it.
Okay.
I
So,
I'm
Ollie,
this week with
sometimes,
Zoom. I'm with Zoom. Very like Zoom. I'm like, how do I do these things? How do I raise my hand? I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that.
I'm going to go on mute and stop babbling. You're going to stay off mute, Ollie, and introduce our guest,
Ooh.
James
Oh my.
Robilotta.
This is fantastic. Here we go, everybody. World's greatest dad. As a host, sometimes my job is to not just talk about myself, like talking about today's guest. Welcome, James Robilotta. Did I say it right? I should
Nailed
have
it.
practiced. Really?
Nailed it. Yeah, you actually did.
Oh, wow. James Robilotta. And by the way, I know how to say his name because he's that kind of fantastic speaker. I had the pleasure of sharing a stage with him. He's a leadership coach. He's an international speaker, which means he could, I assume, speak in many languages. He wrote a book, Leading Imperfectly, which probably is a book I probably could actually read because Lord knows I'm imperfect. James is an improv comic and a full-time dad. He travels the world teaching people how to be authentic and vulnerable like I am, because my shirt's not even all the way buttoned. That's talking about being vulnerable. That's me right there. James believes that imperfection is a superpower. So oh, he's in the right place. Wow, Neil did a great job of writing this for me. James, welcome to World's Greatest Dad.
Wow. What an honor to be here. This is a big deal. I need to be upfront with both of you up top. I have not yet been given a mug or a shirt that says World's Greatest Dad. So I don't know if I'm officially in the club, but I'm hoping that being on this gets me closer.
Neither have we. But as soon as we get the merch, James, it is all yours. Get us that dress, and you cover shipping and handling, and we got you, baby.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Unfortunately, I believe the tariffs in China have slowed our big merch plans that we had at the top of the year, sadly.
You know, Ollie, you're making me think that we can just blame anything on tariffs. That might be like a life hack this year, probably next year, probably for the foreseeable future, which would be like tariffs. Oh my God, I was going to do the dishes, but tariffs.
I happen to be someone who has had his fair share of menial jobs, spent too many years trying to run an office, and one of my tasks was having to make company mugs. And I remember my boss saying, listen, don't feel bad that they misspelled our company name. They make this in some factory in China. So I do have some real world experience with factories and cheap coffee mugs. And let me tell you something. World's Greatest Dad is absolutely going to have a cheap coffee mug made without a lot of bespoke care in some factory. Although, who knows, things could change, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, let's get that problem, I think, is where we're at.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
James, I want to do a quick little background check here. Make sure that you are in the right place. You are a father, correct?
Father, yes, father of two little ones. I have a son. His name is Rome. We named him a Verb. So that's fun, Roam. And he is 4 and a few months. And I have a daughter, Adelina, who will be 2 in the middle of June.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And of course,
Ro-
you know Ollie has a 13-year-old renegade, sassy son named Heath. And I've got a 7-year-old daughter named Cecilia. We call her Cece. And 4.5-year-old named Zeke. Now we're aware of all of each other's legitimate children. The other ones we're just not going to cover on this episode.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
now.
great. Yeah, I didn't sign a waiver.
I can't believe, how did this, let's just get into probably the hottest topic of the day. How did you and your wife decide to name your child Rome? When you said it, I automatically thought about the city. So,
Yeah.
explain yourself.
Yeah, we also love the city, so it kind of works. But we decided to name him Rome I spoke up in Winnipeg, Canada. That's why I'm allowed to call myself an international speaker. And but but yeah, spoke up in Winnipeg, and we're just kind of walking around town and bought this really beautiful line art drawing of a buffalo or bison, if you care about science. And inside, it says Rome, and then underneath it says, "But always come home." And I'm married to another professional speaker. And so we are frequently kind of crisscrossing each other. We like to joke that we have a long distance relationship, but we have the same address. And the idea is like always come home, and home is wherever the other person is. And so that's why we bought it, to be cute as a couple. And then during the pandemic, I was walking down the hallway because there was nothing else to do besides pace, and and I passed this, and it was right after my wife had gotten pregnant, and I just yelled down the hallway. I said, "What do you think about Rome?" She was like, "The city or the verb?" I said, "The verb." She's like, "I love it," and that was it. And that's how we named him. So that's how he became to become Rome.
Wow, that was like a really interesting and cool answer. Not that I was anticipating, not that I was anticipating this version, but just to show you like where I've been and who I've run into in my life. You know what I mean? Sometimes you hit that, and you're just like, you find out that these people, the person's like, I grew up in a commune. You know what I mean? Like it's like, yeah. Family moved around to lots of family name. We were in Taos, then we moved to Portland. Like that kind of vibe. But this was like, with meaning, and also it's like, you're a professional, and yeah, you're not a hippie who went from Taos to Portland, Oregon. Because
I was like, is this a river, summer fix kind of thing?
Yeah.
Remember, I'm in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. A lot of rivers. A lot of kids named River.
Oh, sure, yeah. Direction named children. Yeah.
Have you run into any other or heard of any other Romes? Because as a millennial Neil, my name's pretty uncommon. But I can only imagine he may be the only Rome he ever meets, spelled that way.
We have not yet met another Rome. We've met, I don't know, I forget. There was some show where there was a Roan, Roan, and the person was a character on a very popular show. I don't know what show it was. I don't watch enough TV. But so we've met a few other Roans, and we've met a ton of other Romans and things like that. So, but yeah.
So, and then I want to know, you got two young kids. You and your wife are both traversing the country, the globe. I'm gonna go even further. How does that work with two little kids? What could that possibly be like? Are you guys just like kind of looking at each other like, well, I'm actually in Phoenix that week. Oh, well, I've got to be in Maryland. Like, I guess they're just with the grandparents. Like, how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So when we first started dating, we were living in New York, in Brooklyn. And when it came time to reproduce, we decided Minnesota was the best place to do that. And so, because that's where her family is from, and her family's able to be more supportive and present than mine would have been out on Long Island. And so, so we did move to an area where we have a little bit more support, but all of that support still works 9 to 5 jobs. And so we don't just have a grandparent on deck. And so when we first had Rome, our philosophy was like, we'll figure it out. And which was adorable. And that's why Rome has been to 26 states. And we took full advantage of the free under two when traveling. And we'll figure it out turns out a little stressful. And so when Adelina came around, we sat down and kind of had a business / partner meeting, and we decided to checkerboard our calendars. So whenever I have a gig, she blocks off her calendar. When she has a gig, she blocks off hers. There's 3 or 4 exceptions to when we're allowed to take a gig on the same day that we also kind of worked out. And for the most part, it is a fair amount of solo parenting that is happening. And we've gotten here because we know that this is all our kids know. It's not like all of a sudden one of us started traveling. And also, we both are very passionate about what we get to do. We love the work that we get to do. And we think that's a beautiful thing to show our children as well. And the goal is to speak less. Right now, last year, we did 120 dates. And that's a lot. And so the goal is to make the same amount this year, but do it in less dates, and keep doing that until we can almost control our own schedule at a time where plays, games, the recitals, and all that stuff happens, so that we can pick and choose where we want to go, when we want to go there. So that was a long answer, but the full answer.
We need the complete roadmap for how this works, because it sounds challenging for sure.
It is. It's very interesting because you have two different experiences. The parent that is on the road is obviously the more privileged parent at that moment, but they're also going through things, right? Because it's hard hearing that, your daughter cried for 45 minutes last night and then cried so hard that she vomited, and you were trying to put the other kid to sleep while this vomit happened. So now this kid's up later, and now meanwhile, I'm in a king size bed in Kansas City being like, oh, shit, baby, it sounds like it sucks. But you feel bad, right? Like, it's like, I wish I could fix it. I wish I could take a lift. I'm surprisingly a decent person at times. So yeah. And obviously there's the stress of doing it on your own, but it's also fascinating because sometimes when you're solo parenting, sometimes it's also easy because you don't have someone to bounce stuff off of. You're just kind of like, this is what we're doing, and we're just going to smash the gas on it. And sometimes that's nice too, because you just trust your instincts and go, as opposed to, having to consult. And like, well, what do you think? Well, I don't know. I mean, it's 64 degrees in the nursery. Do we need a long sleeve, or do we need that kind of stuff?
James, how old are your kids again?
Coming up on 4.5 and 2.
Wow. I mean, that's, I feel like, certainly a handful. Like, I have a kid who, like, the hard part is just kind of going, okay, he can't stay after school anymore. He has a harder cutoff at 3 most days, unless he has practice. But he's also pretty autonomous, like, he can, like, do things. We can leave him. I don't know. It's crazy. I feel like you're kind of, for you guys to both travel, and their age, you're definitely, short of newborn status, you're definitely in the thick of it. You look rested. You seem balanced. It seems like it's all working out. You figured something out. Is it
those nights in the king size bed that kind of recharge you?
Was KC recent? Was Kansas City? Are you in Kansas City now?
I'm not. No, that was definitely a story from 2 nights ago. For sure. Yeah.
Okay, I have so many follow-up questions, James.
Yeah.
And one is, so when you are together, because I totally get the, like, when you're solo parenting, like, no one can say they can't have an extra candy bar or stay up later, or that's what I'm doing. But when you're back together, those, what is it, 240 nights a year where you're, a family of 4 under the same roof, how do you find that sometimes you and your wife, do have different styles of parenting, and how do you manage that? It's like, well, when you're gone, we do it this way, and like, how do you deal with that whole kerfuffle?
Yeah. There are a few things that we do a little bit differently, but for the most part, excuse me. Unfortunately, for the drama that we're trying to create in this podcast, we're pretty lockstep. And I think that there were a couple things. Like, I'm not a super disciplined person, but the most discipline I've ever had in my life is my kid's sleep schedule. And I'm like, we are locking in. And so some of that kind of stuff is pretty steady. And if your sleep schedule is locked in, the meals are normally locked in. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's in there. And so as far as the way that we handle things differently, there isn't too much that we're coming from wildly different approaches on. And she may be a little bit looser about this or looser about that. What I've also noticed is that it's nice when we're together because we each have our own triggers. And there's things that when the kid does this, for example, my son is starting to get into lying right now. And let me tell you, boys, that does something to me, right? Because I'm like, what? Why? And you did it, you did it so badly, so badly. Get better. But more importantly, like, what environment have we created that you can't trust us in telling us, yeah, I took my sisters of the pink egg at Easter, right? What deep thing have we created that you feel like you can't tell us the truth about what's going on? And it's so, but like, it just like pops me off because I'm like, I'm supposed to build a relationship where you trust me and come to me. And now you're 4 and I'm already effing it up. So what's going on, kid? Fix me. And my wife is like, I see that this is rattling you. Maybe I'll take this. And then she has things that run her up the flagpole, but I'm like, why don't I tag in here? Right? It's not quite like, we're not to the point of having safe words like Oklahoma. Okay, I'm in. Right? Like, or anything like that. But I think we're getting better at noticing when one person's getting fired up and hearing the other person say as a compliment, why don't I step in here? But that's hard because you want to feel like you're doing a good job and you got it and everything's under control. But no, you've actually lost your shit. So that's what I would say. It hasn't been too dramatic in terms of the patterns around the home. And I think a lot of that is because when the other person's home, we need them to kind of stay on the same schedule. So keeping the kids as regulated as possible has been really helpful for us.
James, at first, part of me is like, oh, James is probably a fun dad. You know what I mean? He's probably like, you get on all fours and play with the toys. Maybe, you're watching a cartoon and you're explaining maybe all the stuff like, oh, I know about this, or you're watching one of your programs from back in the day. I would do that when my kid was younger, like explain to him like the magic of Transformers or whatever dated cartoon I wanted to share from my youth.
Love that.
But what's interesting is like you do have things where you're like, no, James has his limits, he has his expectations, and it makes me want to know about your dad, because behind this happy veneer, I wonder, you've got some clear-cut dad rules, expectations. You have expectations, perhaps more so than I do, to be blunt. To be very blunt. What was your dad like?
Yeah. My father, shout out to John. My father was first off is a great man. And like any other father is a flawed man. And my dad grew up on Long Island, and my dad would take the train into the city every day, and work his insurance job and then take the train back. And so he would get up earlier than anybody in the household and be out the door to catch the hour-and-a-half train ride, right? And then take the train back. He'd get in. Train would get in at 6:45, 6:52. He's walking in the house. He goes upstairs, takes off his suit and puts on comfy clothes. 7:07, we're eating dinner. Right? And like those 15 minutes are when I go upstairs and spend time with my dad while he was getting into comfortable clothes. And then we'd eat dinner, and then he'd usually be around time for me to go to bed. And on the weekends, he would play golf and come home and watch golf. And so, yeah, my mom did a lot of the day-to-day raising of me. Right? A more, I guess, traditional household in that way. And my dad's big thing is respect. To this day, if he ever introduces me to somebody, I'm now going to be 43 soon. He still introduces them as like, this is Mr. Cartwright. This is Mrs. Cartwright, right? And they're like, John, he can call me Rick. He can call me Barbara, right? And he's like, nope, it's Mr. Cartwright. And so like big on respect. And that is a huge piece of him. That is, that's definitely in there. And it's fascinating because to tie your points together, there's there's a huge part of me that I've now realized in therapy. Shout out to therapy. Kelly's putting in work on this guy. All right, this chassis didn't come this way out of the box, boys. All right. So, but yeah, I kind of realized that I had this realization, like my parents didn't really play with me. Neither of them actually, and that's not ever what they did. And the way that I wrote stories about that has now been fascinating to kind of uncover. But we're not talking about me; we're talking about parenting. I'm happy to talk about that stuff if you want to, though. But in general, it's led to my sometimes feeling like I'm not enough. I need to do more for you to like me and want to hang out with me. And so now when it comes to parenting, there are definitely some times where I'm like, let's put on a show and just chill here, folks. Like, let's hang out. But I'm also needing to be, Ali, that guy who gets on the floor, right? So I'm getting on the floor more. I'm like, I got to play with my kids. I wasn't playing with as a kid. I got to play with them. And figuring out what that looks like. And I'm a guy who loves to have a deep introspective conversation. We're not quite there at these ages yet. So there's part of me that struggled for a really long time when the kids were young with finding connection with them. I had a really, really hard time as a new dad with infants with that. So yeah, then I don't know how much that stems from my father, but I think some of it definitely does.
What's he like as a grandfather? Do you see is he different than he was as a dad?
No, their quote is, "We raised you to be independent, so be independent. We figured it out, so will you." My parents snowbird. They still live in Long Island. I'm in Minnesota now. My parents snowbird, so they go down to Florida for 4 or 5 months of the year. And I have 4 nieces and nephews back on Long Island that live within 20 minutes, even 5 minutes of my parents. And my parents babysit maybe 4 times a year. And they're literally like, if you want a babysitter, like we'll help out every once in a while, but you're going to hear about it. And we're not really, that's just not what we do, right? We figured it out. So you got to figure it out. And so, yeah, it's been very interesting to see. And as a grandparent, I mean, definitely loving, right? Like if my son climbs on my dad's lap, he's happy to read a book with them. He's not like stiff. They're not like stiff arming these kids. Like, get the hell out of here, kid. What do you mean? Well, put your pants on. Right? Like they're not, they're not that. They're loving, but they're not like, let's get on the floor and do all these things as grandparents. But they're inquisitive and they give time where they can.
Did you ever notice, and I think your kids are probably at a perfect age, but certainly on even the younger side too, there's a telltale sign when you see we probably had a couple friends who all had kids literally around the same time, right? And it was stark, the difference, when our other friends' parents would come and they were far more hands-on, you know what I mean? Like they were doing, and I don't mean like, well, they live close. They flew in halfway across the country, and they were all up in it. And my wife and I did not have that kind of experience. Yeah. And we were literally, like, so jealous. Like, oh, I wish we had that grandparent. Yeah. Especially during the tired years of 0 to, I don't know, 19. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The time. Yeah.
The time. You're kind of in it now. You're like, whatever, man. Yeah. I can't leave my kid alone for weeks on end. Haven't done that yet, but it's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming. Yeah. That's just. Is that something you guys have like noticed when you see like the other parent, the other grandparent that's just like, whoa, this is.
Is there grandparent envy, James?
Is there grandparent envy? Yeah. One of my I have 2 older brothers, and one of my older brothers married into a family that they show up at everything, literally at every single thing, right? And they're cool. They got a pool in the backyard with a diving board, right? Like just elevated grandparent status. And they're great human beings, true, a very loving family, and they show up to absolutely everything. And it's been fascinating to watch my parents kind of be like, yeah, I can't believe they do all that. I don't know. That's not for me. I mean, good for them, I guess, but we ain't, like, not influenced, like seemingly not like Like it's almost like I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with them. Right, we're doing it right. Right, like it's very interesting how kind of locked in they both are. Both my mom and my dad are this way. I think my mom would want to spend a little bit more time, but what's the cursing rule in this podcast? Prefer not to? We're good? Okay, great. So Suzanne Robilotta's arguably her most famous quote is, I fucking love to sit. My mom shows up, gets her white wine and sits. And then she loved it. She'll hang out and talk. She just wants to hang out and talk. That's all my mom wants to do all day, right? And so, so yeah. And so when it comes to grandparenting, that's what she loves to do also. And so, yeah, so and whereas, and they're also a little bit older. I should mention that too, right? My parents are both 77 now. And so there was a little bit of, at the ages that they were and the condition of their body, bending all the way down into a pack and play and picking up a 25-pound object. That wasn't really quite where, at least one of them wasn't always able to do that. And so there's a little bit of that too in terms of help versus my wife's parents are running laps, or quite literally running laps around most. Like I think they work harder than my kids when they're here. They're putting in more. They're really into it. They're super energetic, and that's the kind of people that they are. And whenever I told my parents about them, like, that's so nice that they do that. Good for them. And no, not an ounce of jealousy.
That's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's certainly, when you frame it that way, as compared to like the grandparent war, sometimes, it's like, well, they got Christmas and we want Thanksgiving, like, cool. Sounds like you got a good thing going.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. As far as that part of it, yeah, definitely. I think that is, we feel very fortunate. Yeah. So yeah, it's funny whenever my parents come into town and fly to Minnesota, my in-laws are like, well, we don't want to come over because we don't, they don't get a lot of time with the kids. They don't do. I was like, my parents would be more excited to see you than our children. Like they would love to just sit and talk to you. And so it's like, please come over.
That is amazing, and also so kind and respectful of your in-laws. You
Yes.
sound like you have like amazing people around you, James. This is
Very fortunate, man. Yeah, we would not be living in Minnesota if my in-laws weren't the shit. Right? Like I don't move halfway across the country from my dream city of New York, and if it wasn't a really great situation here. So
yeah.
Feel very fortunate.
It's really odd because I actually just started watching Fargo for the first time just last night.
Oh
Just last
my!
night. The feature. I'd never seen the feature. I've actually seen the series. Did you when you moved? I mean, you've been traveling a lot, so you probably visited your spouse's family. Like, were you prepared for the culture shock of going to Minnesota from being born and raised in New York City? Was there even a culture shock?
The Minnesota nice, as they call it out here. Have you heard this term?
Well,
Yeah.
that's the way you describe your in-laws, and I grew up in the Midwest too. I think there's a real truth to it. Like the Midwest can be quite friendly, if you will.
It is friendly, yes, but it's almost to a fault. Where like the one comedian that I heard out here said something that I absolutely loved. He's like you got to watch out when you fight a Minnesotan because you punch them in the face and they'll just keep apologizing. And so there's a lot of that you like have to overcome and this is some of the stuff that my in-laws are dealing with, and they should be going to counseling as well. We all need to be going to counseling though. It's not just a them thing. It's everyone. But still, like where they always feel like they're in the way or they're doing, and we're like, we need to constantly remind them, like, we want you to be active. Like, we love you. Please come to the house. Come spend time. You're never in the way. You're never bothering anybody. But they're always like apologizing and trying to do this and trying to do too much. So yeah, but moving to Minnesota, one of my favorite examples of this is, we would do the white elephant gift exchange during the holidays where, you have, where everybody would get somebody secretly, and you'd go around in age order, and you'd be opening the gift. You don't know who gave it to you, whatever. And so, someone they would be opening a gift, and maybe after they removed one, maybe two pieces of tape from the wrapping, whoever bought them that gift, which is secret, we did the Secret Santa thing. I mean, it was the secret. They would out themselves and be like, there's a gift receipt in the box. Now, if you need anything, just let me, we can go to Target. We can exchange it. I don't know if you're going to like the color, but I'm not really sure if it's your size, but I just thought it would look so cute on you. And I just want, this person hasn't even opened the gift yet. They don't know who gave it to them, but they're immediately apologizing and just saying, what can I do to be helpful? And it's very sweet. That's always slightly passive aggressive. But yeah, it has been a bit of a shock. The worst is at four-way stops. Because it's like, oh, no, you go. Oh, no. Oh, you go. Oh, no. And you sit at a four-way stop forever. I just go to a four-way stop and I smash the gas and we're keeping it moving. And we teach them a little New York offense.
I feel like that actually sums it up. And it also connects a little bit to what I've been experiencing watching Fargo a bit as well. That is fascinating. Do you like the hot dish? I'm just like kind of rolling in Minnesota right now. Who knows about what it's like to be a dad? Do you like that? And Neil, feel free to jump in if you've never even heard of this magnificent casserole.
Yeah. Hot dish, it took me a few years to realize it wasn't a compliment. I've learned that every hot, there's different regional hot dishes throughout, and truly it's a tater tot. A tater tot casserole, essentially. There's a cream of mushroom soup in there, and there's, a whole bunch of cheese and usually chopped beef or chopped turkey, all in this delicious casserole. I mean, it makes a winter Minnesota's night warm up pretty quickly. So, yeah, I'm going to stick to your ribs food up here.
It's like Sunday church food. You know what's crazy, Neil?
But it needs hot sauce. It always needs a little seasoning.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Neil, I feel like if you and I went to Minnesota, coming with our respective backgrounds of basically not being people who grew up going to church, we would be like, maybe we would do you think we'd become Christian curious? Just for like, I don't know, the Sunday potluck kind of vibe. I'm just trying to imagine myself in a Fargo world right now. And Neil's coming with me. Because I don't want to be the only new guy. Yeah,
sure, yeah.
Yeah. I'll speak for myself, Ollie. I kind of feel like we're like already in it. Like, I live in America. I'm almost 40 years old. Like, Christmas, Easter, Jesus, the whole thing. I get it. I struggle enough with, how involved do I want to be with my own religion? I'm Jewish, James. So like, Christian curious? I mean, how much more curious can I be? Like, I have Christianity being pelted at my face at all times,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm just more like Sunday potluck curious, like what if I just entered a group? I just feel like I'd be in a basement, there's folding chairs, folding table, and we're just carrying heaps of food cooked in a slow cooker. It's very.
This sounds like an AA meeting.
Friday fish fries, right?
It depends how long you stick around. If you're there all weekend, you can probably catch an AA meeting and then make it to the Sunday.
Yeah, that's true.
Dan, I really took this one off the rails. I swear we had an agenda. We have an agenda.
We have an agenda to indoctrinate fathers to be better dads, or just authentic dads, which is a good segue because that's kind of your thing. That's your shtick. And correct me if I'm wrong, James. We did just the hopefully right amount of research before you came on. I believe you talk about both authenticity and imperfection and how those things work together. Is that right?
Yeah. The role that authenticity and vulnerability should play in leadership or connections and things like that. Yeah.
So what we want to know is, and what our listener wants to know. We always talk about our listener, our one listener, because
of course,
and it changes from week to week. Sometimes it's my mother, sometimes it's my sister, sometimes probably someone hate listening from high school. But for our listener, James, how does the whole imperfection thing and using that as a strength, flipping it, how has that worked for you as a dad? How do you think dads can employ that, when they mess up or they're just like down on themselves, something that they're not good at? How do they turn that around and make that a strength as a parent?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I have made a lot of money on this earth telling people shit I should do. Um, and so a lot of what I talk about and why I know it's important is because I want people to be more free than I sometimes am and allow myself to be. Free to be a little more imperfect, a little more imperfect, a little more authentic, and things like that. You know, I have anxiety. And anxiety is fascinating because it's trendy, so that's why I have it. So okay, I'm nothing if not on trend. But anxiety is interesting because anxiety, what it does is it keeps you in black and white. So you're either a great professional or a terrible professional. You're a great dad, a terrible dad, a great partner, a terrible partner. And so for a lot of this, um, for a lot of this parenting stuff, it's been fascinating because there are so few check boxes to know that you're doing a good job, right? Whenever I have the opportunity to speak at colleges on like during new student orientation, that the parents are still in the audience, I'm like, this is one of your few check boxes. That's like, we did something, we did okay. We got them to this point. I was like, and so congratulations. But like, you know, the joke is always, you know, the first birthday party is for the parents. It's not for the kid, right? It's hooray, we kept them alive. Right, and like those markers of success, um, and, uh, and so it's hard because all you have left is to compare yourself to people around you or to the way that you were parented, and comparing yourself to people around you is shitty because everybody looks like they got placed up higher on the mountain or they're higher on the mountain than you are. And and it feels like you're always behind, and you never turn around and look at how far you've actually climbed and what you've actually accomplished, and why for right now you can think that you're enough or that you can be proud of yourself. Instead, you're just like, oh God, look at I got so much crap to do. Look at them, I do this. Right? You've heard the term "shooting on yourselves." Right? Look at them, I should. Look at them, I should. Oh, I should, I should. Right? We're shooting on ourselves, and that's what parents do that so much. And so how to lean in to imperfection. This is why I started going to counseling. My counselor was like, "What is?" I started going to counseling for the fourth time. Okay, but so I started with my counselor, and she's like, "What's your goal?" I was like, "Grace." You know her? She hot? Big tits? Where's she at? I gotta meet her, right? Because I was like, I need grace in my life because I'm too busy at the polls. I remember when my son was 2.5, 3 months old. I was sitting. He was in my wife's arms. We were on the couch, and I just started crying. And I told her I was like, it's really hard to watch you fall in love with our son, and our son fall in love with you faster than I am falling in love with him. And I was like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you. What I'm telling you is that I know I'm going to get there, and it's going to take some time. I was like, I need you, Tina, my wife. I need you to be patient with me. I'm working on it. We'll get there. Um, and that was me kind of leaning into like it's hard to not feel a sense of connection and a sense of that I'm doing anything right now because you're not getting the validation from what is essentially a glorified football at an infant age, and so. Um, so a lot of it is trying to catch the spiral a little bit sooner, and recognize that yes, one way that you're writing the story could be I'm not good enough, I'm not present enough, I'm on my phone, so I'm a piece of shit. I didn't help out here. I didn't help out. I didn't do enough here. You can write that story if you want, but there are also other stories that can be written there. It's like, yeah, you know what? I didn't help out when they were crying, but that's because I was doing the dishes and making sure that this was rock solid in the house. Or, it's not like I haven't changed a diaper today. I've already changed 2 diapers. And so I missed this one. That doesn't mean all of a sudden I'm a shitty dad who doesn't care about feminism. Um, and so anyway, I think that's really the recognizing is that the one story that you think you're writing there are other narratives that you need to consider before you pick a plot.
It's really funny you're talking about the your wife connecting with your son, you know, faster than you, earlier than you. So our daughter's 7, our son's 4,
Yeah.
and when he was born, it was 2020. Remember you might remember that year. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
stuff happened,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I too am a person who has a lot of anxiety, and that was the year like I just kind of went in this like downward emotional spiral. So by the time our son was born, I was like kind of like checked out,
Yeah.
um, and and I was not able to bond with him in the way that I was our daughter, and I was kind of like, how could I ever love another child the way I love our firstborn, you know? And my wife likes to tell this story that, like, you know, how with our iPhones, we take like a million pictures. That,
Yeah.
like, I was looking at her holding him in a picture, and I was like, wow, you look like you like really love him. And she was like, what? Like, don't you like? And she'll, I will say, shout out to Zoloft. We're good. Love my son as much as my
Mm-hmm.
daughter now.
Yeah.
They're different, different kind of love, but I love them just the same. Um, and yeah, but she likes to tease me and tell people that story of just like, you look like you really love him, because I was just, I couldn't find that way to connect with him. And
Yeah.
also, I'll say by contrast too, like, it's different when you have your first kid, at least for me, with the baby, because it was our first and all these different things. And then with our second, like, I had this now, like, 3-year-old to hang out with, who was doing all these things for the first time. And the baby, I was like, this baby's boring,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I felt bad about that, So
Uh-huh.
I'm definitely with you on everything you're throwing down. Um, so how did you?
Did you feel that with your first also, Neil? Or no?
I will say it wasn't the pandemic. Definitely had some struggles, but it was a lot easier. It was just because I think the newness, and obviously it's different for everybody, but with my daughter, it was 2018, and everything. We like to say when we meet people with babies, it's like sometimes you're talking to them and it's like, wow, they had they gave birth to the first child that ever existed. Oh my
Yeah.
God. They roll over,
Yeah.
they do this, they coo. It's like, yeah, that's what babies do. But when it's your baby, it's so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that's like a first, you have two, I have two, Ollie's got one. If you have more than one, sometimes that cliche is true that like the first time with the first child, it's so special. And like, yeah, that's what kids do. It's whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Ali, how was it for you when when your son was born? What was that like?
I pretty much was just like, cool, sweet. We're just rolling with that, I
Yeah.
remember the period of time while my wife was carrying our son. I remember she's like, listen, we were still living in LA at the time, lived in a loft in downtown, and she's like, yeah, I mean, if I were you, I'd go out while you can, So I was out a fair amount, including the the Saturday night, and then Sunday, whatever, early morning. She goes, "We gotta go. We have to like leave." And it wasn't like sitcom water break. It was something a little slightly more concerning that turned out to not be a big deal, but we had to like go. And I remember I was like, okay, cool, yeah, I'm ready to do this. I remember I was driving up 8th Street, getting on the highway, and she goes, you don't have to drive fast. So I was like, it's cool, I got it, and yeah, I just kind of was like, oh, is it time? Oh, shoot, we have to go? Oh, the flight's in 2 hours? Got it. I think I got everything. And that was it. We were off to the races. At the time, I used to work in commercial casting, and I remember 3 days later I was like, I gotta go to work. I remember they're like, you just had a baby. I'm like, yep, yeah, totally did that one. And we lived in this, like I said, in this loft. It was kind of like a giant open space, so it kind of worked out and made a lot of sense for us. And yeah, just kind of raised him for 3 years there. There were times where I was working, times where I wasn't working. None of it was planned. I feel like there's no plan now, like
Yep,
there
yep.
have just been, for me, like as the dad and as a parent and as a provider, there are times where I'm like, I got this. And now I'm like, what the hell I don't know what I'm doing. What the hell is happening? And I feel like, yeah, so not a lot of big grandiose planning. When I think about hearing about your dad being like, I have a job, I wake up, I go to the office, I change my suit, and like there are times where I'll pick up my kid from school and he goes, oh, can we go get ice cream? You look like you're not dressed to do anything today. And I'm like, touche, you know? Yeah. So I basically, I don't know what's happening. I'm kind of cruising along, and here we are. I actually just came off a really terrible moment with my son on Sunday, actually. It was my birthday, and to be totally blunt, I think I had too much alcohol, and we were kind of horse playing, and then it kind of got weird, you know what I mean? It worked out fine, but it was definitely one of those moments where you're like, it's weird. It's like, your kid gets older and they're aware of certain things. Yeah, they see it. They're like, oh, look what mom and dad are up to today. You know what I mean? And you're like, maybe this isn't the best look anymore, James. You know what I mean? Yeah, so, I don't know, man. I'm just, the crazy thing, though, is at this stage and just kind of, in a way, knowing that you guys are in the fucking shit, you know what I mean? In terms of younger kids and stuff like that, and the days are long, the years are short. What's frightening for us is my kid is about to just finish 7th grade. Like, it's really going into overdrive. He had his, kind of graduation ceremony from, elementary school at 5th grade. That's how it goes here. So middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th. And I was like, wait, huh? Wait, we're leaving this building? I like this building, I like my diaper bag. I like the stroller. I kind of, and maybe that's what happens when you don't have a second kid. You're like, oh, it just feels like it's happening at warp speed, which is kind of crazy, and seeing, the kids at his age, some of them, you're just like, that is a freaking man. That is a man. There are men out there.
Yeah.
He does track and field, and there's some kids out there, and you're just like, Jesus. I mean, that guy could be a 5-star recruit. You know what I mean? That's what's so weird. So soak it up while you can, and
especially in Texas.
What's that? Oh yeah, they're juicing the kids here. They're juicing them all. Oh my God, he goes to the most elitist. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's a well-off private school, but my thing is just I have the crappiest car at pickup. About 2 years ago, I literally said, I didn't know Rolls-Royce made an SUV. How about that? I'll meet a dad who's like, oh, what do you do? And he goes, man, it's pretty fortunate. I sold this company and, just hanging out a lot lately. And I'm like, I hang out, but I did not sell a company. I'm, yes. So, yeah, there's a big, I just unpacked everything, and there's a big mess. I left a big mess on the floor, James. Just being real here on World's Greatest Dad.
That's beautiful, brother.
Perfectly authentic.
Indeed,
James.
Indeed, yeah. No, that's some real stuff, man. And I mean, again, that comparison thing that we were talking about is real. And whether it's, we have a couple that we've recently become friends with. They have 3 kids, all from 2 to 6, I think, or something like that. And the husband was a former D2 defensive back, a football player, and is still quite in shape. Right, hasn't let go, and he's running around on the floor and doing everything, and not not groaning when he gets up. What? You just got up, dude. You didn't make a sound. You all right? And so and then my son's like, we gotta go play Nana Nana Boo Boo like Mr. Cole did. And I was like, I gotta take some effing Advil first, and then sure, right? But like that dad comparison thing, or I mean, obviously money is always fascinating to think about. You know, like you said, the cars that are doing the pickups and stuff like that, and the assumptions that are being made. Yeah, it is very interesting. There's a piece of us where there's an innate provider in all of us, right? And there's a competitive nature that is scientifically in all men, um, and uh, and that's not a bad thing. It's something to be aware of. It's also something to be aware of from a higher self, right? Because the world has changed, right? We're not going out and chasing down, I don't know, capybaras to feed our children, right? Over the fire. And so we're at an elevated place, but there's still that thing that pulls on you. Where it's like, I don't know if I'm blank enough because men are supposed to, or dads are supposed to, or my dad blanked. It's very interesting to balance that. Like the world has changed a lot of ways in our favor because we're allowed to have emotions. We're allowed to be stay-at-home dads. We're allowed to be whatever it may be. But there's still genetics and science and all that kind of stuff in us.
So I'm so glad you brought that up because, we are two dads who are, created the podcast about being dads, which there's others out there, but they're not so common. There's a lot of mom podcasts, there's a lot of mom content. I think for a lot of dads, it's maybe the third, fourth, fifth thing on their list of credits, of who they are. And I'm curious your thoughts on like just where we are as a society with masculinity and what it means to be a man and how that kind of works with fatherhood these days, how it informs, how you see yourself as a dad, like where you think it's going. I mean, how do all
Mm-hmm.
those things work together? Because obviously you're talking about, there is an innate, masculinity, but obviously things are changing. I mean, what's your thought on like what's the modern dad? Is there a modern dad? What should it be?
Yeah. I always hesitate to try jump into shoulds. I think should often equals shame. And so I try to avoid that word at all costs. But um, I think that the world has gotten better to allow men to have more emotions. Um, and that is beautiful. I still think there are different cultures that are, each culture kind of is at a different place in their ability to adapt to that. But either way, in general, I think the mean, the median has gone in the right direction for men being able to have emotion. I do still think that while we are allowed to have emotions, men are still taught to be internal processors. So don't tell me your process, tell me your product. Don't tell me what you are going through. Tell me about what you went through and how you got through it, right? That's our idea of vulnerability is I went through this thing and I'll tell you about it now, because I finished the race. So now I can turn around and help other people finish the race. Whereas I think true fatherhood, true community, true brotherhood is helping people while you're all running the race, right? And maybe I'm a few breadcrumbs ahead of you on the trail, but I don't know exactly what's happening. But here's a little bit about what I learned. But I'm still trying to figure some stuff out. And since we are more internal processors, that causes the conversations when we get together as men to be fairly surface, and we don't ever kind of get into like what's going on, right? I'm supposed to tell you I love my kids. I'm supposed to tell you this is hard. I'm supposed to tell you, but I'm not going to get into why it's hard for me in particular, right? Like, oh, what a humbling choice, right? And we kind of keep it moving, like almost a Rodney Dangerfield, like, oh boy, I tell you, right? And so, but yeah, so what do I think am more advanced? Um, uh, I guess, world looks like for us as fathers. I think it looks like conversations like this, of just like somebody deciding to have the courage to either ask a follow-up question, be like, "Oh shoot, man, you said it was kind of hard. I know you said it jokingly, bro. Like, and I get that, right? No, I get what you're saying, bro. You know what I mean? But actually, bro, like, what's been hard for you, right? You know what I'm saying? That kind of that you good, bro mentality, where we frequently say "you good, bro" to each other, and we're like, "Yeah, I'm fine," right? We're all members of the Fine Club, right? Heads on fire, I'm fine. But when do we have the courage to ask a second question? Right? One more question, not be like, "Oh, that's cool, man. Yeah. Hey, what are your darkest insecurities about being a dad?" Right? Like, like, don't make it weird, right? But like, one more question just to open the door. And that's what I try to do that. And also, it's also having the courage to be like, if someone's not asking you a second question, sometimes the courage needs to be on you to be like, you know what, let me put a little more out there and see if there's any fish in the water. If I were to put this out there and be like, actually, it's kind of hard. I'm trying to figure out how to juggle ambition and presence with my kids right now because I got these dreams, but I also want to be a present dad, and sometimes that's something that sits with me that's kind of hard that I'm working on right now. What if you say one more thing? Does that open the door to someone being like, "Oh shit, bro, that's crazy you said that," because I've been thinking the same thing, right? But it takes courage on both sides of the conversation. Once somebody's got to ask one more question, or someone's got to share just a little bit to get a little bit, and I think that's what the movement looks like towards being better. I don't know, fathers with each other, with other dads, and just being men, right? And punching this loneliness epidemic in the face.
That was beautifully said. Kind of encapsulates our whole thing of what we're trying to do. That's really nice.
I told you he'd be a good guest. See? And now...
Finally. 56 minutes in, I finally proved it.
Oh. Well, it's a good... Hey, you did it. I know
the episodes
we're going to lose you soon, James, but I know we wanna get to some listener questions. Ollie's got this like gigantic fan base. I mean, millions and millions of people writing in. We can only get so many, but often
the fatty side or the lean side, Ollie. Go ahead, fatty side or the lean side. Go ahead, buddy. Tell me you like your brisket.
Little bit of both. You want to try both. Be a professional.
So usually Ollie graces us with his worldly wisdom that he's making up on the spot. And oftentimes, has some great advice. We're going to, if you'll grace us with your pearls of wisdom, James, we're gonna read some questions and tell us what you think. There's no wrong answer. There's no shoulds. You taught us. Cool?
I'm ready.
All right. This comes from one of your brethren in a non-coastal state, Martin in Ann Arbor, Michigan, although a little bit sophisticated, college town. Martin writes, "My 9-year-old son is super competitive and hates losing. We've been playing chess lately, and I've been beating him fair and square. But now he doesn't want to play anymore. My wife thinks I should let him win sometimes to keep him engaged, but I'm worried about setting a weird precedent. I want my son to build resilience, but I don't want to crush his spirit. Is it ever okay to throw a game?" James, thoughts?
This is a good question. Shout out. Deep thinkers out in Ann Arbor. Go Big Blue. This is a great one. I love this because you all actually would probably be better to answer this because you have older children than mine. So I'll offer a quick answer, but I want to give you all space and time since you have more experience. I think it is okay every once in a while to throw a game. At the same time, I think it's okay to want your kid to try, right? And all the studies out there show that you should not tell your kids that they're smart, but reward the fact that they tried as opposed to their intelligence. And so, and I think that sometimes when they stop wanting to play, when they stop wanting to play. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to come back, but sometimes, when they do come back, they come back with more tenacity. Or who knows, maybe they've been practicing somewhere on the side. But yeah, so I think it's okay every once in a while to let them slip, right? When we play basketball, I'm not Dikembe Mutombo on every single shot my kid takes. But I do think it's a balance. And I would probably err more on the side that this father is talking about than on, but here we are. What do you all think?
What do you let Heath win? What's your story?
I really don't have to do that at all. He destroys me at chess. I've never been very good at it. So basically, I'm dealing with a human that has surpassed me physically, frankly, mentally. Absolutely, I can't help him with anything. I don't know, how good this person is at chess. I'm not. I think, I would totally be like, I'd throw the game. I kind of don't care about winning. I'm not that competitive that much. My guess is this, all right? You don't want to wait to 20 years from now, and your kid's like, you never let me win. Not once. You're a jerk. You know what I mean? Come on. You can let you and look, there's ways to throw the game at the very, very end. You know what I mean? You don't have to totally lay down. You don't have to pull the king out and just let him get exposed. I figure there's got to be a very tactical way to basically, let the kid have it in, figure out some moves, and then, let him earn the game you're giving to him. Okay? There's got to be. I wouldn't know because I'm not that good at chess. My brain's just like, I'm over this. Can I do something else? But yeah, and my guess
I like that answer.
Yeah, the kid, they learn, they think, what the biggest thing is like, they just learn and figure stuff out. Regardless of how much you think you're steering the ship, that's what school's for. So, I don't know. Have them watch Searching for Bobby Fischer. I'm out.
Does that hold up? I've never seen it. Maybe I'll watch that when I'm alone one night this week.
Wow, that's crazy. What else? No other plans? Besides watching Searching for Bobby Fischer when you're alone?
All right, I'll chime in with my twos because we've got
going to punch your pawn.
Varying ages. Right? I get it. You know what that reminds me of? The end of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, where the kid's like, French class, I got it. Which, we showed our kids Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, but I think Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is really like a little scary because you want to see the toddler be big like Godzilla. You don't want to see them be almost stepped on, All right, here's my advice for that, and then we'll move on to the next question. So we play Zingo. You play Zingo with the kids, James? Are they too young? You got to get Zingo.
Never heard of it.
You got to get Zingo. Go on whatever e-commerce platform you use, Amazon, Target, your local game shop. Get Zingo. It's basically bingo for kids, and so you don't even have to let them win because they'll probably beat you anyway because it's just kind of luck of the draw. You fill up your little card. Do I have a horse? Do I have a shoe? Do I have the sun? Super fun. So what happens in our house with Zingo is usually one of our kids will win, but I have two. So if one kid wins and then the other doesn't, there's like a freak out, and we have to teach them, hey, sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. And we're teaching them about sportsmanship, which is, my kids play tennis, so that's another thing that their coach is big on, like, hey, you shake hands, you make eye contact, you say good game. So less about who won, who didn't win, but more like we were competitors, and it's just an honor to be in this competition with you, and you performed well in this round, and we will have another. That's number one. Number two, speaking of chess, I'll give another shout out to, I should get a commission for this because I tell so many people to get it, and then they're like, oh my God, it taught me chess. No Stress Chess. There is this, it's chess, but it's called No Stress Chess. It's a product available for $20. It's basically a chessboard. And on one side, it shows you where all the pieces go. And there's a deck of cards. And you pull the card, and it tells you which piece you're allowed to move and how to move it. And so for my kid, who I think at 5 or 6, we were teaching her, they don't know how to play. It takes away all of the stress, if you will, the anxiety of, there's infinite moves I can make. It's like, nope, you just have to move your rook. And where does the rook go? The rook goes here. And so that was kind of a fun way to just learn where all the pieces go. Now that we're getting a little more advanced, she wants to flip the board over where it doesn't tell you where to go. And sometimes she'll make a move and I'll go, hey, and I don't know if this is throwing the game. I'll go, hey, before you do that, think about every move that could make. And I'll let her kind of like take a clutch piece of mine, because I'm showing her, maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you want to do this. Once she gets a little bit better, I will crush her. All right. We will play in a way that it's like we are evenly matched, but I got to get her to that point. We're not evenly matched yet. And so I think it's finding that balance between, who cares if she beats me, I beat her. It's about like the entirety of the process of playing the game where she feels like she has some wins, she has some losses, she learned some stuff, we had a good time. And then one day she'll see I will dominate her in chess. Is that fair?
It's really it's what's hard is just knowing how this is also out of reach for me. Even when I play like my old school 90s Super Nintendo games off our Switch, because we have the little throwback thing, he can beat me in that too. Like he's really, I just have I got a real guy's beyond me. You know what I mean? I just, I can't compete. I can't compete with this kid. It's crazy. It's crazy. He is now, man, I just won't ever know what that's like to really be able to be like, I'm going to beat you at this. And I'm too lazy to get better.
Know thyself.
Ollie, you want to read the Travis? Travis had a question. Why don't you read that?
Oh, really? Oh my God! This is late breaking. Let me get this document out there. Oh my God! It's Travis from Boise, Idaho. Here we go. Last night.
Boise.
Did I say it wrong? Boise.
Boise. Yeah.
Boise.
Not Boise. Not a Z.
Sounds like
C.
you're describing, the feel of the state. It's very Boise. A lot of Boise.
Yeah. Wow. It can float. It's quite Boise. All right. So Travis says, last night I totally lost it on my 6-year-old for dumping slime on the new couch. Ugh. Slime and new couch is a terrible combination. I yelled louder than I ever have, and now he's been avoiding me. I feel awful. My wife says I should just move on and not make a big deal out of it, but I can't stop thinking about how scared he looked. At the same time, I don't want to be one of those parents who over-apologizes and loses authority. How do I repair things in a real way without turning it into a guilt spiral? Wow. All right. Well, Travis it sounds like he is in a spiral right now. Well, James, as our guest, we're going to turn this one over to you.
Thanks.
I think, especially since you even know how to say Boise, like you probably spent a significant amount of time there.
Travis will listen to you. He'll respect you because he knows that you know his home state.
It's a great, for sure. Yeah, it's a great town. Sneaky good foodie city, Boise. So, Travis, first off, this sucks, man. Like that's first and foremost. This situation is hard, and I'm sorry that you're going through it. And I respect the hell out of the fact that you are letting the emotions hit you. And I appreciate you for paying attention to your child enough to know, like, the look on his face when I was yelling at him, the fear that came into him, so it's a hard situation, dude. And I applaud you for thinking about it and reaching out with a question. And I think when there have been times when I've popped off on my children, first off, there's an untapped anger in me. I'm a happy-go-lucky dude bouncing around, making silly jokes, doing improv comedy, all that kind of stuff. But anger is not an emotion that I ever really spent a lot of time with growing up. And so to now be experiencing anger for one of the first times, um, it's interesting to learn how to have it and how to manage it, how to deal with it, because we are also allowed to have emotions. We are allowed to be reactive to things. We ideally want to stay proactive, but that's not the way humanity works some days. And so there's a couple of things. I don't know how often you go into anger. If you go into anger a lot, well, my counselor has told me, shout out to Kelly, that means there's inner healing work that we need to do. We need to be a little more self-compassionate towards ourselves. That's some work that I'm trying to do. But, when it comes to these kind of one-off situations, I think what I try to do is I'll let a little time pass, a couple of hours, maybe, half a day or something like that. And then I'll call my son over and say, let me talk to you for a second. Daddy had big feelings. And daddy's allowed to have big feelings, just like we tell you you're allowed to have big feelings. And sometimes our big feelings don't always come out at the best time or the right time or in the right way. And, there's sometimes where you have big feelings and it makes, and I don't always react the best way. And there's sometimes where I have big feelings and I want to be communicating something in one way, but it doesn't work. And so I just want to apologize that I didn't handle my big feelings as well as I could have. And I'm always trying to work on it. Just like that's what we do in this household. We try to get better every single day. That's kind of what I try to tell my son, is that big feelings are allowed in this household, but we're also responsible for the impact of our big feelings. And so this is daddy taking responsibility for that impact. And I'm sorry I scared you.
I have nothing better than that.
As far as I'm concerned, the situation has been resolved. Yeah. And P.S., I'm stealing that one too. Big feelings. That's a really good one. I think James is like my new dad. Jesus crazy.
It's actually something I've been wanting to tell you.
I know.
No.
Big feelings. Big feelings have come out. That's amazing. And I'm older than you, too. It's just amazing. Amazing stuff.
Science is crazy, man.
That was a fantastic freaking answer, I have to say. I am freaking blown away.
James, we're gonna close it out with one more question. We're gonna put you on the spot with this for one more listener question, and it comes from Mike in West Hartford, Connecticut. So back on the East Coast.
There we go. How you doing? What you say over there? How you doing, Mikey? Good to see you.
So Mike says, "Hey, Ollie, my kindergartner used to give me the biggest bear hugs and yell, 'I love you, Dad,' at drop-off. Real melt-your-heart stuff. Lately, he's been giving me nothing. Just a quick wave and barely making eye contact. I found out some other kids made fun of him for hugging me once, and ever since then, he's been a little stiff and weird about it. I know he's growing up and trying to fit in, but it kind of crushed me. Part of me wants to respect his space, and the other part is panicking that he's already picking up this whole boys don't show feelings thing. How do I handle this and help him without making it worse?"
Woo! Another good one. And I can only, that first time that your son doesn't come give you a huge hug and yell, "I love you, Dad," right? Like that's got to be, I don't know what I'm doing when I get back in the car at that point in time. Aside from probably crying but I remember there was this one moment where my son was like, "Daddy, don't pick me up and sing to me." At bedtime. And I was like, "Oh God, he's growing up. Oh, this is it." I've been so focused on firsts. Now the lasts are starting to come. When's the last time you, whatever, right? But anyway, man, so this is a hard situation, dude. And I love you for loving for caring about it too. And I think that I think it's a couple of things. I think having the conversation with your son of like, hey, we used to do this, and that felt really special, and tell me, and kind of talking through the situation of like, what do those other kids tell you, and how did that make you feel, and at the end of the day, it's also bringing back family values of like, hey, in our family, whenever we leave each other, we tell each other that we love each other. Right. And, if you want to come up with a new way to do that, whether it's a dope, you come up with a dope handshake or something like that, right? Like we can come up with something fun that, because I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. But at the same time, these kids that are making fun of you, they're probably not getting as many hugs from their dads. And so it's coming from a certain place from them. Maybe you don't need to get too deep in that to psychology, but that is probably what's happening, right? We often make fun of people for things that we feel we're lacking. So anyway, I think that's how I would probably try to handle it. Is like, hey, it's important for our family that we say I love you every single time we leave each other. I don't care if it's just for a couple of minutes, not a couple of minutes, but I'm saying an hour, or we're going to school, or whatever. At night we say I love you to each other before we go to bed, and so that's a family value of ours. And so I want to come up with a way that makes you feel good about that, but also a way that makes me feel good about it, because I need you to know I want to say I love you to you. And I don't want that to be weird, because it matters a lot in this household that we say that to each other, and that we all feel love and give love.
Nothing but net. Nothing but net. Like, you're just like, did it even move? Part of me for a second is like, yeah, it's cool. We won't do it anymore. Like, I surrendered my position in seconds. Because I know that feeling too well of, like, and it depends. And it's weird. I don't think my kid is really in that scenario. But I was, in 7th grade. You just kind of have it's awkward. You know what I mean? And, kids make fun of you. I got made fun of. You're like, you just don't, you want to like, ugh. I think about wanting to shield my kid from that kind of like feeling, that shame or whatever. But I think in the end of the day, you said something that's just like, I think pretty gutsy, which is like, we're a family. We have values. That's gutsy. Find that to be gutsy. Meanwhile, I was the coward who surrendered his position. At the first sign of any resistance, I was like, I give up my position and I'm running away. I dropped my rifle in the trench. That's...
You know why? You know why you did that? You don't have Kelly.
But I've got James. I'm thinking about turning back around and getting back in the trench. Man,
there you go, buddy.
Maybe I will fight. Damn it.
Hey, James, thank you so much for coming to talk to us today.
Gentlemen, this is a pleasure to be on this with you, and it's cool to learn some things from you all as well. I appreciate what you shared.
Very cool, thank you. We often Ollie will give some parting words of encouragement to the dads out there who may one day, hear this, maybe next week, or we probably won't post this in a few weeks. But Ali, do you want to show James how it's done? Give a little pep talk.
Oh, our sign off? You know what? I'm gonna take a page from some of the great advice and insights that James gave us, which is, hey dads, not only are you guys doing great because you're being a dad, which is one of the greatest things you can ever do, but little extra piece of advice here, a little nugget. Take this opportunity to think about your family and what it is about the family that is really important to you, and say it out loud and define your family value. Because you have a family, and that is so important. Important to recognize, important to protect, important to kind of define. So, yeah, think about what your family values are. Doesn't have to be a big thing. Don't bother with the manifesto. We don't have to write the Magna Carta. just a little nugget, a little soundbite that says the Khan family is all about treating each other with as much love as possible. And with that, you're all one of the world's greatest dads.
I was going to say French fries. I thought you guys were all about French fries.